fact, is going to talk a little bit about the club itself. There are new folks, and I did not get the opportunity to introduce the club last week. So just give me a quick minute. Let me tell you that the club was started in 2011. It was by Hemant. All of you know him well. You've interacted with him. So it was all his passion and love for whiskey that got him to do a lot of research, and he did white paper blogs. He decided to organize all that and put it together on a website. That's when he started smacindia.com. He did that for a few years, and we've known each other for more than 25 years now. So we sat down one evening and we said, let's do more for the club. I found this concept very interesting. I'm a beer lover basically. My knowledge about beer is a lot more than whiskey, but it's getting better on the whiskey front. So we sat and we said,
Beer is the father of whiskey.
yeah. Thanks, Krishna. So we decided that we'll do a little more. So we said let's start with getting members aboard. Let's get people who are like-minded, who'd like to share their thoughts and experiences with us. So we started adding members, and since then we've added 3,000 members, and we've got to keep this interactive. So we decided on doing events on a regular basis. So we try to do that one event at least in a month. So it could be either a whiskey launch, it could be a tasting session, could be a masterclass. We've done whiskey trails. A lot of you've been a part of these events with us, and we also do whiskey launches exclusively for the club. So Mohan, that was one point that you made. We have launched 3 whiskeys so far with club exclusives. First was an Amrit single malt, which is the Amrit Amaze 1 in 2018, and in 2019 December we released the second part of the trilogy, and in January this year we released the Paul John Cask 6028, which was a single cask edition for the club itself. Most of those bottles are stuck with Anurag Wines, yet to be out with folks. So you may not have had the opportunity to taste it, but we put in a lot of effort in getting that liquid that drops together. It's not easy to pull off something like this in the Indian scenario where the excise department each and every step that you take. So
can I still order for Paul John? Is it or it's too late?
We don't think it's too late. We've had some recent updates. We'll keep the club posted about it, Mohan. So it might just come up again on raffle. If you're lucky, you might just be able to.
Okay.
We maneuvered through those challenges, and we pulled off those additions for the club. That apart, we also keep you updated with Facebook posts, and we've got an Instagram handle as well as Twitter. So if you at all have something interesting to share, put in your thoughts on any of these platforms, and we're always there to add on to your thoughts and also provide our perspective. Right. So that was about the club. We are here online, all of us today, because of the lockdown. We hope that once we are out of this, we'll be able to meet in person in one of those events that we organize. Right. So that's about the club. I'm just going to be quickly giving you a couple of pointers on some of the rules for the evening. I'm going to mute everybody to start with, because when Hemant starts talking, we just like everybody to be quiet. So I'll be controlling the mute button. If you have any questions, please hold on to it. In about 20 minutes, we will take a break, and I'll give you an opportunity to ask away. And if there are any technical disruptions, we'll log back in. And if we are unable to do so, we'll probably reschedule for another time, and we'll keep you notified about it. Last but not the least, the point I want to make is this whole event is for charity. Any contribution coming in from all of you is deeply appreciated, and it will go to a charity. We'll share the information with you as to where it's been forwarded to. Right. So I'm not going to hold you back anymore. I'm going to pass it on to Hemant right now to kick off this second part of this series. Hemant, whiskies, fancy or a fortune? Take it on, please.
Thanks, Harsha. Thanks a lot. I guess you can mute everyone now, and so that at least they don't with what I'm saying. Well, a couple of things that I wanted to share with you folks. Again, thank you all for being here and supporting the event and supporting the session. I hope you had fun last time, and I'm going to try to keep this session interactive again and as entertaining as possible. The subject is a little heavier than what you would probably expect. It's not something that's been discussed in depth, at least in the Indian context of things. So it's going to be something new for some of you. And of course, the others may have experiences and may have a lot more insights into what I'm going to speak about. Harsha did speak about our club and where we started off from and what were the origins, etc. But one thing that I would like to probably highlight to all of you is there is a reason why we carry the name SMAC, that is Amateur Club. Amateur we retain in our name because I think that I'm an amateur. I think that I'm still learning about whiskey, and most importantly, I think that it is to actually allow members to ask questions that they would otherwise hesitate about. I think so that's something that I very strongly believe in, saying that, you know, you should ask something. There's no question that is a stupid question. The only question that's a stupid one is the one that you don't ask. That's what I honestly believe in. So that's the reason why amateur sticks with a club name as such. So if there is any question that's bothering you or something that you'd like to discuss about, please feel free to reach out to us, and I'll be happy. If I know, I will try to answer it, or I will try to get the answer for you. All right. So as I was saying, so what we're going to discuss today is something about whiskey, fancy or a fortune. Now, this has got to do a lot with whiskey now being perceived as an investment tool and also becoming expensive, more rare, and let's say that there is a demand that's being created in the market that is insatiable. The number of bottles that are going across markets in terms of trade is pretty high. So let's dig a little bit deeper into that. So off I go into the session. As I said last time, please feel comfortable, get yourself a drink, get yourself a notepad if you have any questions. I have some interesting bottles which I consider interesting, and some of our audience also should be able to pick up some bottles and show some, you know, something that may give you folks some smiles around. So I hope that that's going to be the theme of the evening. You're going to see some rare bottles, hopefully, and appreciate them, at least if not own them, not all of them. One thing that was actually very difficult for me to do is get some of my bottles from different locations. Obviously, I don't keep all of my bottles for legal reasons in one place in India, and but to get those bottles also was a difficult task. But here we are, off we go. So fancy or a fortune, why did we think of this? I thought that the first session what we did was into introduction as to how to select a whiskey. Now we want to talk about, you know, what's making the spirit so sought after, what's making the spirit actually being traded on auction houses. Why is there a whiskey index, and what is this entire fancy about Japanese whiskey? There are a lot of questions about that, so let's get into this. First thing, what makes a whiskey rare? I mean, there can be a list of things as to why a whiskey can be touted as becoming rare. And it can be anything from marketing swill to actual factual data. I mean, last time we touched about it briefly, saying what makes an edition limited edition, or so on and so forth. So it can be absolutely anything that can make, you know, a bottle rare, a bottle something sought after. But we'll touch upon some of the points. First point, I think so, the most common one, and the one that actually you know, steps above the rest in terms of what makes a whiskey rare, is something known as silent stills. Now, silent stills is a phenomenon when occurs when the distillery producing the whiskey has shut down or been mothballed for various reasons and is no longer producing the spirit. So when it's no longer producing the whiskey, the bottles that are there in circulation, those are the only ones that are left, making it rare. And obviously, sometimes it may also happen that some of these casks are stored in different places, which allow these whiskeys to be bottled at different stages. And that's when you see these bottles coming up in for sale at different point of time. Limited releases from Diageo sometimes comes up with these, saying that limited edition bottles which are from silent stills. Some of you may have seen my social media post today with one of these bottles, and the funny thing about this bottle is that the label is almost gone. But if you people can actually have a look at this, this is a Port Ellen whiskey. It's a 13-year-old Port Ellen, which is by itself rare. It is from Hart Brothers, and it's been distilled in 1982. Why this is rare is you may get an old Port Ellen, but getting a young Port Ellen is quite difficult, because when it was produced and when it was bottled, I guess the shutdown of the distillery ensures that the only the aged whiskies now are available in circulation. So silent stills is something like that. I have one more bottle just to make it a little more interesting for you folks, and this is something that I actually like. Let me just get this off the case. This is a Glen Uri Royal distillery. It's got an absolutely fantastic story if you Google in the net, as to in terms of an affair between royalty and the distillery folks. But this is silent stills release from signatory, and it is a Glen Uri Royal. And I hope you guys can see this. I've got a cling wrap around it just for storing it, but if you guys cannot see it, let me know. This is distilled in 1973, the golden era as they call it in terms of whiskey production in Scotland, and it's bottled in 97. It's a 24-year-old Glen Royal Uri. So that's about the style and stills, as to why they make why whiskey is considered rare. One of the reasons why that would be the cause for whiskey to be rare. The second one, which is again going to be very common, is whiskey writers and whiskey connoisseurs and whiskey evaluators who rate the whiskey. And I can't think of a more apt example than Jim Murray. Now there might be different let's say reactions from some of you in the audience as to what Jim Murray. I can see Krishna smiling to himself. Yeah, Krishna, I let me say that well, I know what you're thinking in the mind. But yes, the concept about a whiskey writer who's popular, who's got a fan following, and who's got let's say an influence over the audience. He writes about a whiskey, he rates the whiskey with an X score, and then it becomes rare, or rather it becomes a sought after item, right? So Amrit is a classic example. Jim Murray rated Amrit as the third best drink in 2010, Amrit Fusion, and thereby started the story of Amrit in terms of how they are producing some of the best whiskey in the world, so on and so forth. Before that, not many people actually knew about Amrit, and they didn't quite pursue it the kind of it pursuing they have right now, right? So we have whiskey connoisseurs actually rating the whiskey. We have silent stills. Another reason why I think whiskey can be touted as becoming rare is the vintage. Now, I did mention a couple of minutes back when I was showcasing that bottle of Glen Uri Royal, the 1970s, considered to be the golden period of whiskey production in Scotland and other places as well, but predominantly in Scotland, I guess. 1970 to 80, 85, I think so. Some of the most outstanding whiskeys were produced in that era. And if you get to taste any whiskeys from that era, I think so there's a huge distinction, in my opinion, in terms of the whiskeys that have been produced back then and the whiskeys that are produced now. It's actually classified into a phenomenon called the old school whiskeys and the new age whiskeys. So anything from that era, I think so, is old school whiskey. Very different. I wouldn't say that that's better because it was produced back then. That's the judgment I leave to you. But I think so the important thing is that it was very different from the whiskey that is being produced today, right? Now, that's one reason as to why whiskey bottles may have become rare as well, because obviously the number of bottles produced in that era is diminishing by the day, and every time someone opens a bottle, you have one bottle less, and thereby the fellowship continues in terms of the demand for that bottle. Another, I think so, very popular reason as to why whiskey bottles become rare and is the significance of the bottle. And when I say the significance of the bottle, maybe the political affiliation, the stardom that it is achieved because of movies, something that you have seen on the movie that someone's drinking, Macallan, common seen in movies. That's something that everyone appreciates, that they want to see. All right, they see a Macallan in a new movie and they think that that's probably something that they aspire to have. So that's again one of the reasons. In the yesteryears, I am told that Winston Churchill used to have a Scotch, and I'm told it's the he used to drink a red label. Now, I wouldn't advise a red label to any of you folks as such today. It might be a different experience, and you may stop coming to these sessions saying that Hemant advised us for a red label, which is not something that I would want to do. But yes, he used to drink red label, is what I'm told. Lady Gaga, Hillary Clinton, Prince Harry, I'm told, is a person who appreciates his whiskey. So there are various reasons as to, there's a significance due to which the bottle may have become popular, and that's the reason why, there's a fan following for that bottle, and people aspire to either own that bottle or have it. One classic example I'm going to bring in, and this is a bottle that I've been aspiring to own. Unfortunately, I've not been able to own that, is the Bruichladdich Valanche. There were a set of bottles that were produced from Bruichladdich. I think this is 2014, if I'm right, or something. Yeah, Harsha's brought that picture up on screen for you folks. Now, as you can see, that's Harrison Ford out there, and that's an Indiana Jones version of the Bruichladdich Valanche. And it's got a very catchy message out there from Harrison Ford, I'm told. It says to the laddies at Bruichladdich, I really like the stuff that you're doing. So if you look at the label, Harsha, if you can zoom in, yeah, and look at that. It says the Temple of Drams. I mean, whoever is an Indiana Jones fan, I think so, will really appreciate this, because it's something that I'd really want. I mean, this is, I'm a big fan of Indiana Jones movies, and well, it's something that I would really appreciate if I have. Yeah, so these are the kind of reasons that actually drive this kind of demand for bottles in terms of what they are for. I've got another picture for you, and this is all very personal, right? When I'm talking about the significance, it might be because I like Harrison Ford. That's a bottle that I aspire to own. That may not be your story. You may have a different desire in terms of the people that you follow and things like that. I'm going to showcase one of the label. Unfortunately, I don't have the bottle with me right now, but I'm going to, Harsha is going to bring up that picture right now into what is the bottle that's probably the most valuable for me. Harsha, I'll need to turn that around, I guess. Yeah, one more round, Harsh. Yeah, no, one more. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's a bit of lag. Yeah. So this is probably the most valuable bottle that I will ever own. This is, Harsha just spoke about it a few minutes back. This is bottle number 1 of Amrit Amaze. It holds a huge significance in my life because this is the first bottle that I have been able to pull off as a club. And this means a lot to me personally. Now, I would also argue that this is arguably the first bottle that was actually done for a private club in India. So India's first private bottle is this. This is bottle number 1. And what makes it even more valuable for me is the people who actually made this possible for me. That is Surinder Kumar, the then master distiller of Amrit, and Ashok, who have signed it for me, saying that salute for your passion. So that's what they had a message for me in terms when they handed this bottle over to me. So this bottle means a lot to me, and I would probably never part with it. And I'd think of a apt date when I can open this bottle. But yes, this is all I wanted to tell you people is it's got a lot to do with your own personal preferences as to for a bottle that may be significant to me may mean absolutely nothing to you, whereas vice versa, a bottle that may be significant to you may not mean much to me. But I've just given you outlaid some of the reasons, generic reasons as to why a bottle may turn rare, and what are the common reasons why this, bottle rarity of the bottles continue. So that's about why a bottle can become rare. I'm just going to caution you folks that this is just a small skim through of the reasons why a bottle may become rare, and there may be multiple other reasons for that, right? I'm going to move on to another part of the story, which is the demand story. Now, every one of you on the session knows very clearly saying that the demand for single malt whiskey has increased world over, right? There are some new markets, and I'm not going to talk about China as a new market. People, I guess Bill spoke about it last session. He says China is way ahead of us folks. I would tout probably India as one of the new markets in terms of single malt whiskey, new consumers. Now, I would want you people to actually take a minute to reflect and think about all the advertisements that you have seen about single malt whiskey, or all the influence that you have seen in movies and things like that about single malt whiskey, right? What comes to mind? Usually it was a slightly elderly gent, affluent background, sipping on whiskey. That used to be the traditional, appearance of a person who actually appreciates single malt whiskey. That used to be the image for a connoisseur of single malt whiskey. But that's not the case today. I mean, just look at your screens. I mean, if you can see everyone on a grid view, I think there are a considerable number of you who have got into whiskey of late, and they are from the early 30s, some of them late 30s, some of them early 30s, and maybe some of them in the 20s as well, who started to appreciate single malt whiskey. Disposable income, huge factor. What used to be a raised eyebrow back then, and I'm not talking very long back in time, I'm talking about, let's say, around 10 years, 7 years back, if you were spending around 7 8 thousand for a single malt whiskey, people would look at you with crazy eyes. But now that doesn't happen. That's one of another reason they're actually ready to spend that kind of money on their whiskey. That was about the demand as to why I think that there is more demand in terms of whiskey. I want to touch about the supply aspect as well. New distilleries coming up across the globe. We have new distilleries in Ireland, there's some in UK, Scotland, again starting to produce. But I think that there is a slight bit of lag between when the demand took off for single malt whiskey, I'm talking specifically about single malt whiskey, and to what the supply is catching up. I think so it's a catch up game. There will be a catch up at some point of time in the future, in the near future I would say. But right now, I think so that's one of the reason why there is a disparity between quality single malt whiskeys being available at an affordable price and the supply that's available, right? Then another, wine as an investment has actually matured, but whiskey probably not to the extent of what wine has matured to in terms of investment tool, but it's getting there, and we're going to speak about it in a little more detail. What I want to really wrap up this first session, or rather the first half of this session, is saying that there will always be demand for fancy bottles. Remember that. I mean, there may be some people who will flip whiskeys, recently released whiskeys, and they may not be something that a lot of people may aspire for. But whiskeys from those 1970s, 1980s, and whiskeys probably made from distilleries which are heavily reputed, like a Port Alen, like a Brora, like a Capadonna, I would absolutely, give everything to say that the demand for that is there. It's going to stay. It's not going to dissipate anytime soon, right? So that was about what makes whiskey rare, the demand and supply story. We're going to take a quick short break where I'm going to let Harsha run through you folks. If you've got any questions, we're going to have probably some of you folks actually show us some of your stuff and let people take screenshots of those interesting bottles. Well, whatever. But let's take a quick 10-minute break. Or Harsha, over to you for questions if you have any.
Right, right. Folks, I'm just gonna. I don't have any questions from anybody. So what I'm gonna do is first maybe ask Bill to talk to us. He's got a couple of bottles which are quite significant to him. So Bill, I'm gonna unmute you. Give me a second. Yep, Bill, you're on. You can talk to us about your bottles, and then once Bill is done, we can take a couple of questions.
All right. So I remember last week I mentioned that Gordon MacPhail, they've got this unique and interesting where they bottle it at the actual place where they make it. Not bottle it, sorry, we store it there. And this one is just a quick follow-up. This is this label, when we first bottled this for Glen Grant, this label was Glen Grant's own label, and they had never used it before because they had never put it on the market before. And they asked us just to put down at the bottom the Glen Grant piece, the Gordon MacPhail piece. So that's like a typical kind of thing where we do a distillery label release that we've got. Now, I got a call recently. I mean, you also mentioned Jim Murray. He awarded Crown Royal Northern Harvest as Whiskey of the Year about 3 or 4 years ago. And half the population of Canada ran out to buy this piece of garbage.
You're not mincing any words.
So I met up with Jim Murray last year. I met up with him, I think it was June or July, I met up with Jim. And I was talking to him, and I pulled him up about how could he possibly award that Whiskey of the Year. And he was telling me that when he was at his home, he's actually English born, and I think he lives in the States. He goes, they sent me down some Harvest Gold to try, and I tried it, and I thought, that's remarkably good, and he put it away. And then he went back to it later on and tried it again, and did this 3 times before he decided this was like worthy of a second look. But when he came up to Canada, it was a different whiskey to what they had sent them. So anyway, that was the story of that particular one. And we're talking about aged, what makes our whiskey rare. I used to import whiskey as well to Canada. And there was once when I got a shipment in of 21-year-old Mortlach. And it was a shipment that was probably only about 12 cases into Canada, into the LCBO. And I think we're kind of same as India, where the government tells us what we can drink. It's not like an open market, right? So I was able to get 21-year-old Mortlach in. It sold in a day. The whole lot was gone. So I went back to our own marketing people, and I said, that 21-year-old Mortlach went really, really quickly. I said, can we get some more? And the marketing came back and said, you should have told us that 21 years ago. Anyway, on to my whiskey. So that was your normal. That was your normal Glen Grant, etc. That's how we normally do it. And this bottle, or these bottles, this label with Gordon MacPhail in it, if you go to the Glen Grant distillery, they sell this whiskey in their distillery at the tourist office. And it's usually an older statement, and it's usually cheaper than theirs, and they still sell it in their store. So it's a mark of respect that Glen Grant have got for Gordon MacPhail. This one, this one was a gift. This one is when Gordon MacPhail got the Queen's Award for Outstanding Business and International Business. They brought out this. It wasn't for public use. It was only for private people. And it was a 1966 Glen Grant, bottled at 45%. And on the bottle, specifically bottled to celebrate Gordon MacPhail, have been awarded the Queen's Award for Enterprise for International Trade. So that was quite special to me. I haven't opened it. And that's the thing when you're collecting whiskey. When do you open it? Because you got to go open it. I'm not leaving this to my kids. They'll add Coca-Cola to it. And the last one I've got is, and just like you, it's shrink wrapped, it's bubble wrapped. This was a bottle of whiskey that an old woman had, and the elderly woman, they had come over to Canada from Scotland. Her name was Vera Duckworth, and they'd come over from Canada. They'd get married on the boat off to Canada just after the Second World War. Her husband had passed away. He still had this bottle of scotch. So she didn't know what to do with it. So she phoned the government. The government said, contact Bill Somerville and he'll know what to do with it. So this is a
Oh my God.
This is a 1939 bottle of Glenlivet. All right, so I had it. We sent it back to Gardner MacPhail. We didn't send the bottle back. We sent pictures back, and it's a screw top.
Mm.
And it's not particularly. We still make this very same label.
Yeah.
And this very same whiskey. So this is going to be an interesting one. So I got it evaluated at the auctioneers in Glasgow. Mm-hmm. Again, via photograph, and they said, "Oh, it's definitely worth $500 pounds." So I did a deal with the woman, and I basically got it for $500.
Oh my God, Bill!
But that was years ago, and you can see how it's
yeah, the fill level
it's gone down a wee bit. It's oxidized a little bit, so some air's got in there. But this is going to be a great one. This is somebody's going to come along one day with a 15-year-old Glenlivet from Gordon MacPhail, and I'm going to crack this one open and share it with that one and do what was it like then to what it's like just now.
That must be a phenomenal experience, actually. Yeah, please do tell us about that. I mean, I can think about a 1939 Glenlivet. I've had some older Glenlivets, and well, I was just saying that way different from what we bottle or what we get today. Yeah. Fantastic amount of difference.
Yeah. So I'm hoping more senior people will keep on giving me their whiskey.
Well, thanks, Bill.
Very interesting. That was me.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Wonderful stories. Thanks so much for sharing. Right, folks, we'll have. Sorry, that was Bill Somerville. For those who don't know him, he's sitting in Canada pretty early in the morning there. Bill, thanks for joining in so early. And Bill is the brand ambassador for Gordon and MacPhail. So it'll be great to connect with him. You guys can pick his brains a little later once this show is over. Right. So we also have Krishna on Nukala with us. Krishna is a sitting judge with Malt Maniacs, the only one in India. So Krishna, I'm going to let you talk about your favorite bottles on the second break that we have. So right now we've got a couple of questions. So I'm going to unmute folks and let them ask away. So Anupam, you got to go first. I saw your hand coming up. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have unmuted. Yeah, so I just wanted to ask, Hemant. So, is there a market for auctions and flipping bottles in India? Do you think so? It's there, or are you expecting it?
Well, the only person who's recording this session is myself. So I let myself the luxury of a very candid answer over there, Anupam. So if you ask me saying that if there are any serious collectors for whiskey in India, yes, there are. There are a few who do some serious whiskey collection. And would they want to trade? Yes, most certainly they do. Some of them would want to trade whiskeys. But it's all going to be a very clandestine operation. It's not going to be open door at all. We're going to talk about it in a while, saying that as to why I think that every market, I think so, in Asia is going to expand the way that how other markets have. It's just a matter of time as to when it's going to progress in that manner. And maybe to an extent, there's still going to be a little closed door. The government regulations, like Bill was mentioning, Canada even now has got a lot of restrictions around it. We're going to get there. But the openness in terms of maybe selling bottles openly, Anupam, I don't see that in the near future. That's not going to happen. But is there a market? Oh, yes, there is. the number of people whom I know who are absolutely enthusiastic about single malt whiskey and these rare bottles, by the day it's growing. I mean, everyone wants to know what rare single malts are, how to procure them. They want advice as to how, they can pick their bottles. So Anupam, is there a market? Absolutely, big market. um, is there going to be a way in how we can organize selling can happen? Legally, I don't think so in the near future. I'd give it
Okay.
probably easily and next 5 years for that to happen. It wouldn't happen otherwise. Yeah.
Right.
Anything else, Harsha, do we have?
I don't think. No, there's nobody. Anybody else with a question? I'm happy to let you in right now. Okay, nobody. Hemant, back to you then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we probably keep it for the end of the session. Now, and just give me a minute. Just my screen. Yeah. All right. So we spoke about what makes a bottle rare, and then we spoke about the demand story as to why I think. And remember, guys, I need to caution you, saying that it's still a personal opinion of mine. I'm just talking about one person's opinion. Well, I may have a little bit of experience because I've spoken to quite a few people about the reason why they would fancy a certain bottle or so, but it's still my personal opinion. And you guys, if you want to make a collection, you need to make the decision for yourself as to why that bottle is rare for you. Why do you need that bottle in your collection? That's going to be your choice. We can, folks like Krishna, Bill, myself, or anyone can probably give you a few tips as to how to procure these bottles, how to look for these bottles, and some tips of sort. But we can't really tell you saying that this is the bottles to buy, these are the bottles not to buy. I'm not going to do that ever. So keep that in mind. Now I'm going to get to the aspect of, now whatever you're collecting, whatever you're collecting for, it might be passion, it might be you like that distillery, you like that whiskey, you like drinking that whiskey, for God's sake. And Bill, it reminded me when you talked about your children drinking whiskey with Coke. That's exactly what Harsha used to do before he joined me in this whiskey club. He used to drink all his whiskey with Coke. He said that it tastes so much better with Coke. That's what he used to do. But yeah, I think so. What I'm going to talk about now is collections, as to how you can build a collection. And again, this is going to be a very, very basic classification as to how you can start looking at having a more, let's say, organized collection, or probably collection that is going to be worth to you much more if you go about it in this manner, I suppose. The first probable way that I would probably go about this is how to build a collection, right? The first thing would be is to, are you building a horizontal collection? Are you building, when I say horizontal collection, I mean to say, are you buying whiskeys of a certain age? Let's say, are you buying a 12-year-old whiskey? Are you buying a 15-year-old whiskey of different distilleries across? I mean, that's an age that you like, that's a type of whiskey that you like, and you buy from different distilleries and create, let's say, you've got all the bottles of Scotland who bottle a 12-year-old whiskey. Now that's a, let's say, a themed collection. It's got something attached to it, saying that you've got absolutely everything on that menu card in terms of a 12-year-old. Or let's say you like a particular distillery. I remember David drinking Auchentoshan, a popular distillery from the lowlands. And if that's something that he really likes, probably he can build a collection which is an absolute vertical, everything from that distillery, right from their very old, let's say 30-year-old Auchentoshan, to the distillery edition, which is a non-age statement. Everything from that distillery, he's got it in his collection. That's the second theme of collection. So there can be, I mean, hundreds of reasons as to how you can build a themed collection. And I like Lagavulin. I mean, Lagavulin is my favorite distillery in terms of whiskey. So I love to have own bottles of Lagavulin, and that's my poison, so to say. And there can be things that are absolutely got nothing to do with the whiskey itself. For example, the bottle types. One can have different bottle types, and there are different ceramic bottles, there are glass dumpy bottles that the people actually aspire for, and those are also a wonderful way to make a collection. And of course, we talk about the other aspects such as vintage, age, exclusivity, the awards, the historical significance. all those, I mean, you can make a collection of absolutely anything. But what I would probably advise for those people who are starting to build a collection is think about what matters to you most, because that's when you're going to actually do some credible research about the subject. If you're just going to go into the market and pick anything and everything that's available to you, you may not actually know too much about the whiskey. They may not actually mean that much to you. It just may mean a commercial reason, which may not be the right way to go about, building a collection, in my opinion, right? So that's about, as to how to build a collection in terms of rare and, aspiring whiskeys. Now I'm going to talk about how do we actually build this collection. And when I say how do we actually build this collection, I'm talking about actually purchasing these whiskeys, where to go for these, buying these whiskeys, and let's say how we can procure them. We spoke about it briefly based upon Anupam's question, saying that are they private collectors in India? Do we have private collectors? I think so. Kasturi said a few minutes back, saying that she also collects whiskey during her international travels or so. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit, saying that how do we actually acquire a collection. Quick reminders. It's India, and it's got some legal rules around it when you're building a collection. Please keep this in mind. There are storage limits. So if you are exceeding the limits, be aware of it more than anything else. Shipping is not allowed. You can't import whiskey by buying whiskey, let's say, abroad, and you can ship. You can't do that in India. So friends and family is the best bet to get whiskeys from abroad. If you're looking to actually build a collection and build a collection with whiskey bottles that are rare for you, I think so the best bet are two options. One is auction sites, and the second is private collectors. I'm going to concentrate a lot on auction sites in this little bit of information sharing that I'm doing, because private collectors, as I said, very cagey, very closed door in India at the moment, very few as well, right? So let's look at the auction number of auction sites that are available for you to actually purchase from. Scotch Whisky Auctions, Whiskey Hammer, Whiskey Auctioneer, Cat Whiskey, whiskeyauction.com. I think so. There's a new one called Grand Auctions or something like that. So there are a host of them. Just do a Google search of it or reach out to us. I can give you the names of whiskey auction sites that you can actually buy from, which are credible auction sites that you can actually purchase whiskey from. And when I say credible, they do quite a bit of extensive research to ensure that the whiskey that you're buying is not a fake, right? And we'll come to the fake problem in a bit. And if you're a beginner, what I would like to also advise is look at the data that's available on these auction sites, all right? Now, when I say data, is some of these auction sites actually have got trend lines that tell you, saying that what this whiskey was worth, let's say in the previous auction or the auction previous to that, or let's say last year, etc. So if there is this bottle that you want to actually own, you can actually go into these auction sites and see what's been the trending in terms of price for these rare bottles. So look at those. I mean, I know it's quite boring. I know it may get a little dredgy in terms of researching whiskey in these aspects, but I'm telling you, if you're going to build a serious collection, do that research. It's going to help you. Second thing, make an Excel sheet, make a chart, make a notepad for yourself that tells you, saying that what's the maximum amount that you're going to bid for whiskey. Very, very important, guys. I'm telling you, you can get very, very carried away. I have quite a few experience of my own, which I'd not like to relate to right now. But yes, don't go without that kind of prep into an auction. Have a threshold saying that what is it that you would be prepared to pay for a certain bottle, and try to stick to it. A lot of auction sites give you that option where you can actually enter that value, saying that what's the maximum that you would like to bid against that, and it negates against that. So try that. That's going to be helpful to you, and that's something that I would advise against. Another aspect for all you folks who want to try out auction sites, remember the heat picks up only during the last few hours of the auction. You would probably think that you'd be winning the bottle, and you'd go to sleep, especially because most of these auctions are based out of UK. You would probably put a bet and you'd go to sleep in India. I'm telling you, you would wake up and say that none of those bets are actually called off, because at the end, the last hour, the last 30 minutes of the auction, everything starts moving at a real quick pace. So be aware of that. The last few hours are the hours in which the action heats up, and keep your bids reserved to that period is what my suggestion is. Another important tip: shipping and insurance costs. Absolutely killers. There is a shipping cost, there's an insurance cost, and yes, there's an auction fees. And if there's a possibility to actually calculate that on your Excel sheet, please do that. I mean, there's a bid amount, then there's an auction fees, then there's an insurance onto that, and then there's shipping fees. So totally put together, you may actually end up paying far more than what the retail price of the bottle is. So be conscious about that, saying that what's the retail price of the bottle if it's available in retail sales, and what are you going to be ending up paying depending upon what you're bidding for at the moment. Right, so I think so. I've covered some of the basic tips that you should keep in mind when going through auctions. Private collectors, I think so. One big factor that will actually put this in the favor of private collectors if you're going to a one-on-one transaction is there's no third party. There's no third party influence that's actually bidding against you or counter bidding you in terms of acquiring that bottle. So it's a transaction between two people. They're just two people involved in the transaction. You need the bottle. He wants to sell the bottle. It's just upon agreement of price. As long as you both are in agreement, you can buy the bottle. But in India, as I was saying a few minutes back, very difficult to do. It is something that's not very openly done, clandestine operations about that. So I'm just going to leave it at that for you folks to understand. Whiskey clubs, great place to meet these people. Whiskey events, again, great place to meet these people, and you will get to know from some of the discussions that they have as to what kind of collection that they may be having. So I leave it and leave that decision to you again. I would probably end this, this one about my tips about acquiring bottles is there's a lot of discussion about we heading towards a whiskey bubble. And I agree with that because of the number of bottles that are being flipped today in terms of being released yesterday and flipped today in an auction. And yes, there is a certain amount of heating up of, prices going higher and higher just as soon as it's released. And there's no actual substantiation for that price increase. But I think so we are maybe a little bit away from that period as of now. I'm just going to leave it at that. We'll probably discuss it in depth when we meet in person or at a different background. But yes, what I want you to be conscious about is without research, if you're going to pay obscene amount of whiskeys for your obscene amount of money for your whiskeys, you're going to probably burn yourself. So be conscious about that. All right, I'm going to show you two very interesting bottles, and this is the reason why I'm going to ask you people to actually keep your eyes open for some great deals. All right, now US, I always believe, is a fantastic place for dusty hunting. US and Canada as well. I think so. You find if you keep your eyes open, visit that very unassuming stores, which you would probably think that no, this person can't really have any great single malt whiskey. If you have any one of those, and if you want to walk past it, I would advise you to think again. Walk into that store and actually have a look at the collection. And now here's another Hart Brother whiskeys. If you can see the label carefully, this is Hart Brothers Finest Collection. And this is, I hope you can read the label clearly. This is a Saint Magdalene. Yeah. And it's distilled in 1982 at 23 years of age and 56%, which is very good. I found this at a store in US. I think so. It was Boston, if I remember. That's where I found this on a store for $80. And I haven't really actually seen as to what it's worth today, but I'm pretty sure that it's worth quite considerable amount more than what I paid for it. And when you're at the same store, make sure that you ask for all the bottles there. And this is the second bottle that he had, and I I don't really remember this price. This is again a Hart Brothers. It's little. It's from a silent still. It's from the Little Mill distillery. It's a 20-year-old whiskey, but I think it was considerably lower than what I paid for the Saint Magdalene's. So two great bottles acquired at a very, very reasonable price, I should say. It was quite back in time, I should say, around 8-9 years back, but then it was still, I think so, an amazing deal that I had with that. So keep your eyes open, ensure that you visit those stores to look for these rare dusties that you may find. All right, I'm just going to quickly run through a few points about fakes and some of the other things that you need to keep in mind with regard to when you're looking at bottles and how to look for it. First thing that I would advise all of you to, when you're buying bottles from an auction or things like that, is look at the seals for tampering. All the auction sites, or rather most of them, allow you to zoom in to look at the seals of the bottles. And I would recommend all of you to pay attention to the seals of the bottles to see if there's any kind of, hanky-panky that you'll observe. And when I say hanky-panky, look for freshness of the foil. If the bottle is aged, then and the foil is looking relatively new, you know that there's probably something that you need to investigate. Ask for guarantees from these auction sites. A lot of them actually explicitly say that in case that the bottle turns out to be a fake, they will issue you a refund. Make sure that you make that distinction before you actually bid for that. All right. Also look for the tax stamps on the whiskey bottles. If those tax stamps, again, sometimes they look very, very fresh, and those are your telltale signs. Research on labels when you're buying high value. Very, very important. Another point which is going to be very important, and if I can have that bottle of Port Alen, I'm just going to tell you saying that, fill level is something that you need to be conscious about. And Bill showed us, and if you can see this bottle, the fill level is getting low and it's starting to get oxidized out here as well. And this is something that you need to be conscious about, saying that if the whiskey is probably from back in time, and if the fill level is unusually high, there's again something that you need to be aware of, saying that, all right, a bottle from the 1970s with a fill level, let's say to this extent, is something that you need to be absolutely watching out for. There's a fantastic book on vintage bottles and how to collecting Scotch whiskey. It's called From a Manual Drawn from the All Alliance. It's an expensive book, but it's an amazing book. And if you're getting into serious whiskey collection, I would recommend you buying that book, because that's worth every penny. It's got unbelievable pictures in it, and it'll tell you as to how to look for rare whiskey vintage bottles. One last point: if the deal looks too good to be true, maybe it's not. So be conscious about that kind of a thing. If it's very, very cheap and someone's wanting to pass it on to you, make your checks before you buy the bottle. Before I end the session and we get into Q&A and we look at Krishna's amazing bottles, one thing that I wanted to actually bring, Harsha, I wanted to bring this up, is I spoke about paying attention to label details. And there's a classic example of Lagavulin. And Harsha, if you can bring that picture on screen. This is about the White Horse version of Lagavulin and the recent bottles of Lagavulin. And both, if you look at the screen, both are the 16-year-old Lagavulin bottles. And I'll tell you the distinction between these two. And this is something that you people need to be aware of as to when you're picking a bottle of Lagavulin. Now, if you look at these two bottles, and Harsh, first, if you move on to the left, which is the White House version, which is the old school bottling of Lagavulin, there's a certain Queen insignia that you can see out there. Can you see where Harsha is pointing the mouse onto? If you can pay attention to this section. Yeah, absolutely there. It's a different logo out there. There's an emblem of the Queen, the royalty that's been put out there. And that's something that distinguishes this bottle of Lagavulin, bottled by the White House distillers before it was owned by Diageo. And on the right-hand side is the newer version of Lagavulin. Look at that. It's got a boat that's actually put as a logo over there. So there's a distinct difference between these two labels out there. So this is something that you need to pay attention to be able to pick these. And if you scroll down, Harsha, just to the bottom section of the bottle, this carton should have the left hand side one should say White House Distiller. There you can see, I'm not sure if you can zoom in a little more, it says White House Distillers um, right at the bottom. And I think so right now it's there you go, it says White House Distillers Glasgow. And if you look at the one on the right now, it's going to be saying Port Ellen, if I remember right. Oh, it doesn't say anything on the case, but on the bottle it does say Port Ellen Distillery, Port Ellen Distillery. So this is again something that you need to be conscious about in terms of when you're buying these bottles. Thanks, Harsha. So this was about paying attention to, and this is very, very basic, guys. Remember, I'm just trying to keep in tone with most of the people in India who are trying to start building a collection. What are the basic points that you need? There are far more points that you would probably want to pay attention to when you're going seriously into whiskey collection. I'm just going to quickly run through storage of whiskey so that it completes the entire picture. We're talking about when you're buying these bottles to ensure that you actually take proper care of them. Keep the bottles up, standing vertical storing. That's the best way to store the bottle to ensure that there's no damage to the cork. Keep it away from sunlight and strong odors. Use paraffin tape. Last time Krishna actually showed paraffin tape, and I'm just going to ensure that you know what paraffin tape is. Now this is paraffin tape that you get in the US or Canada also. I think so you get that in Singapore as well. So not in India, but you get paraffin film in India, which is pretty much the same thing for, so what you do is you actually pull this paraffin tape and seal it around the bottle. I'm just going to show you what I've done with the St. Magdalene's. You put it around the cork area, which will ensure that, there's less amount of evaporation, right? So that's what you'd want to do in terms of this one. Keep the spirits away from other strong, alcohols, or let's say paints. Paints is something that you need to absolutely keep them away from, right? So that's what I guess I had to share about whiskey fancy or a fortune. I hope you learned something about a heavy subject as such, and if whiskey collecting is something that's of interest to you, I hope it's been of help. Now I'm going to hand it back to Harsha. I'm going to have a quick dram of that Amrut whiskey that's tasting so good. So Harsha, over to you, and if there's any questions, I'd be glad to take that as well. Harsha, are you there? Or are you having your dram yourself?
Yeah, sorry. I've just unmuted myself. Yeah.
Okay.
So we will take a couple of questions, but before that, we'll have Krishna share with us some of his favorite bottles, or something that is meaningful to you, Krishna. I've been watching you dunking down a lot of whiskey. Please, keep some for us, all right?
I think so. We said that we promised someone that we're going to give him a 21 dram salute before. So I guess we're on schedule for that. But yeah, Krishna, all yours. Show us what you've got. Some amazing whiskeys of yours, and why that. And tell us more than anything why that means that much to you.
Yeah. Am I online?
Yes.
Okay. Guys, good evening. I will be talking very quickly because all the speakers have spoken a lot. Okay. Basically, why do we buy whiskey? There are only two reasons. There's enjoyment and appreciation. So the reason we guys are all here tonight in this evening is we have passed the enjoyment stage. We are in the appreciation stage. We are appreciating whiskey, right? So when you appreciate whiskey, then there are few stages that pass into. When we appreciate whiskey, then there is a store of value. Whiskey. Why there is? Why do you buy whiskey? Why there is value to it? Because whiskey has a store of value. It doesn't spoil. And then again, there is a demand and supply. Because each whiskey, the cask that is made is a specialty of its own. Like Hemant said, there are silent distilleries. Actually, before saying silent distilleries, there are actually silent casks. Silent cask means that cask is no more. The whiskey that is made from that cask is no more there. So the whiskey that is produced from this cask, which has yielded a certain number, X number of bottles, are limited. So what happens is, because there is a store of value, the whiskey stays for years, hundreds of years together, decades of years. If you remember, there is a Ernest Shackleton expedition that has taken place about 10 years ago, where they have uncovered the whiskies of Sir Ernest Shackleton, that is McKinley's whiskey, which is more than 100 years old, which means the whiskey has not gone spoiled. So because the whiskey is not spoiled, the whiskey has value. So these are the reasons why we get into this whiskey. Right. Again, when you buy these whiskeys, you have to be very, very careful, very, very knowledgeable, very, very informative about what we are buying, what you are going to buy. Like we say in Malt Maniacs, we used to have those days when we used to say FBI. FBI means not Federal Bureau of Investigation. We call fake bottle investigation. So Hemant has already spoken about that. So when you buy a bottle, you have to look at the label, you have to look at the stamps, you have to look at the cork and all that. It all it boils into looking at a bottle, whether you want to buy a bottle, whether how good the bottle is, how much fakeness is going to be there in that bottle. So you have to be extremely careful. You have to be knowledgeable, and the knowledge comes not with just one evening session like this. It comes with it comes with lot of work, a lot of energy, a lot of toil. I've been drinking whiskey for the last 25-30 years, so it's not easy. You see, when Bill is saying that he's the brand ambassador of Gordon and MacPhail. Gordon and MacPhail goes back to 1895, which means they have got bottles which are made before World War I, which are bottles which are made before World War II. So when he showed that bottle of 1939 Glenlivet, those who are into history, those who know a little bit, studied history or gone into World War II, in 1939, Hitler invaded Poland. On September 1st, 1939, Hitler invaded Poland. So when that Glen Grant bottle, when Bill has shown to me, immediately my mind went back to 1939, Hitler invading Poland. So you relate that Glen Grant to that event. So imagine that is what Gordon and MacPhail has made that bottle for us, which means a student of history. A student of history is also a student of fine whiskey. So these are all interrelated. You see, whiskey is all about romanticism. It is not like just drinking. You know, you guys are sitting, we are all sitting and discussing this evening this whiskey, because there is not simply just drinking a dram and going away. There is a lot of romanticism that is involved in it. So, guys, what I'm saying is, I will show you a few bottles. There are two, three different cases, like whiskey for fancy and whiskey for appreciation, fortune. Whiskey for fancy, I will show you a bottle that is, I don't know whether I can see it or not.
Oh, yes, we can.
You guys, can you see this?
Yes,
what is this?
Krishna, I can. The Champions decanter.
Bring it closer, Krishna.
Yeah.
Lift it up, yeah.
Yeah. This is a Manchester United Champions League bottle, which they won in 1998 and 99, and they bottled it. And this, sorry, the deal is that the guys who are so against Manchester United, they may be cursing me to show because I'm showing this bottle. Because I'm a Man U fan and my son is a Man U fan. I bought this bottle on auction because my son is an avid fan of Manchester United club. And these guys they bought in 1988-99, they won Triple Crown. They won three leagues. So they bottled it. So this is a special bottle, like the Amrit MS 1 and 2. So these are fancy bottles. These are the occasions when we buy these bottles. Right. Then there is this whiskey for investment, or whatever you say. It is a bottle of Karuizawa, 1973, 39-year-old Karuizawa.
Guys, please take screenshots of this. I'm telling you, this is something that you may not see every day.
Can you see it?
Yes, Krishna, December 1973.
Yeah. So this is a collectible bottle, both for investment and for fashion. This is a 2013 Malt Maniacs overall winner. And can you see the ABV of this? This is 67.7%.
Oh my God.
67.7%. Right? So this is a bottle that is for keeping and for investment and or whatever you want to say. So this is a rare bottle. Then there is an occasion of bottle for, this is a blend. This is a J&B.
Okay.
This is a J&B, Justin and Brooks J&B 250 years celebration that they did in 1999.
Can you pick that bottle up a bit, Krishna, so that we can have a view of the bottle? Yeah, okay, that's better now. Yeah. Oh my God. Is that a 5-liter bottle or something?
This is a 1 liter. This is a 750 cl.
Well, it looks gigantic from here right now.
It is a 750 cl.
Okay.
This was bottled on the occasion of 250 years of Justinini and Brooks, J&B.
Okay.
This is a blended whiskey, and I tasted this in 2012 Diageo's Malt Maniacs meet, and Charles McLean simply described this is a drinking whiskey. You can drink this loads and loads of this stuff. And why I'm showing this is because this is an occasion whiskey, like you said the Amrit 1 and Amrit 2.
Yeah.
This is a rare bottle, and I will open this when we guys meet whenever we time in Bangalore. So these are the bottles. When we say whiskey for fancy or whiskey for fortune, so these are the things that we need to we look into.
Great.
It is basically.
I'm booking my flights to Hyderabad, Krishna.
No, I'll come to Hyderabad. I'll come to Bangalore. Sorry, I'll come to Bangalore.
You're better.
So this is
fantastic, Krishna. I mean, I think so. Those bottles are absolutely each one very different from the other. And what I liked about those bottles were very, very different league, actually, very different ranges. One because of being a football fan.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. Because your son or daughter or who may be fan of some club, the club bottlings, like you Amrit club bottling. This is a Manchester United club bottling. So. I just wanted to show that. And the Karuizawa is a 2013 Malt Maniacs winner, and that's very close to my heart. So
fantastic.
So these are whiskey collection and buying. It is not a one-day affair or a short-term affair. It is a long-term affair. People have to study. It's like a piece of painting. You see, there are so many fakes of paintings. Layers and layers of painting. People will fake. Similarly, fake bottles are there. A lot of fake bottles are there. So you have to be extremely careful. The more you study, the more you discuss, the more you interact with people, knowledgeable people like, like Hemant, what he's doing is doing a fantastic job to discuss. And it's not an easy job. So that's what I want to say. Anytime we will discuss, we will meet, and we will open. And one of the most recent things I have come into is, there are so many good blended bottles. Fantastic blends old blends are there. So we should not just look down upon blends. Blends are extremely good. And there is some secret thing that is going on between Hemant and me, and we will open. we will get some good blends and get some great evening in Bangalore or someplace. So we will open some blends and some nice session. Yeah, that's it, Hemant.
Thanks a lot, Krishna. As always, very well spoken. I think so, Harsha. We have someone else as well that we're going to.
Yes, I'm going to unmute Damu, folks. Damu is joining us from Hong Kong, an avid whiskey drinker and collector. Right?
I'm going to say something about Damu, all right? And I haven't met Damu ever before. This is the first time that I'm actually seeing Damu face to face. But there are a few things that I want to say about Damu. One thing that's, I want to appreciate Damu. First of all, thank you for being online, and it's a pleasure to have you on this session. What I want to really appreciate about you, Damo, is that I think that when we talk about different experiences at Whisky, every one of you may be at a different stage. Now, Sharat may be at a different knowledge level to what Vasudevan is, and Mohan, of course, has got a lot more experience on his palate compared to even me. What I really appreciate about your post, Damo, is that you do not actually differentiate between the people. My club and our club rather is something for a different category of people who are entering the world of single malt whiskies. So their understanding of single malt whiskies or their appreciation may be at a different level. And thank you so much for being absolutely unbiased when you're making those posts about the whiskies that you drink and explain to us in detail about the tasting notes that you have. So thank you very much for actually actively posting on our club, especially with the fancy bottles that you actually consume. I am hoping that you're going to have some, again, stellar bottles for us to actually look for. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Harsha, and thanks a lot, folks. Thanks, Hemant. My apologies that I got stuck. Some problem with my laptop, so it was going into a loop. Pleasure to see you all. I just want to share some information with you regarding the whiskey collection, right? Initially, I used to drink a lot of whiskeys. I used to live in Netherlands, so I attended a lot of tasting events, etc. But at that point of time, spending something like £100 or £200 on a whiskey, something that I couldn't afford from time to time. So I was not really getting into collecting whiskeys. I never knew that the whiskey world would explode and the demand would go, shoot through the roof. And I was not aware. I was not thinking on those lines. So I wasn't collecting too much. But later on, when I moved around the world and settled down in Hong Kong, one thing I realized is this is a tip that I want to share because this is something that I practically experienced. Never underestimate the airport duty-free shops. I had a very nice experience because when I was passing through one of the airports, that was when Lagavulin's 200th anniversary, the 25-year-old bottling they had released, and absolutely the people in the duty-free shop had no idea what exactly is the worth of those bottles. So they were just opening up the boxes and trying to arrange. So I just had a look at the price and I thought, oh, Lagavulin 200th anniversary 25-year-old bottling looks good. And the price was like, I really felt that, that was the primary market price. And you could imagine that the price in the duty-free shop, I'm talking about 3-4 years ago when Lagavulin celebrated their 200th anniversary. I believe that I paid under around $600, but US dollars. And I also got some 10% off because of the credit card, blah, blah, blah. But today, looking back, right, I mean, looking at the auction sites and the price that is around the secondary market is quite unbelievable. So my own single tip is, when you are going through the duty-free shop, keep an eye on some of the things that are there on the shelf. You never know what they would turn out to be. It could be Highland Park, or it could be a Lagavulin special edition. Sooner or later, just spend some time. It's okay, because when your wife is browsing through the you know the duty free shops, you all sneak through and just try to spend more time on the duty free shops. Definitely, it is worth spending time even now, because I tell you, a year and a half ago, Chichibu released some bottles in Singapore airport, and I think pretty cheap, or almost like the distillery price, and they were all sold out. So keep an eye on the duty-free shop, and definitely you would come across something that sooner or later you might see that they appreciate. Coming back to something, I just want to show something funny. I do have a few collections like Diageo, Lagavulin, Casta Distinctions, etc. But I'm not going to bore you with that. So I also want to tell you that collecting whiskeys is also fun. Sometimes it need not be expensive. It need not be something very rare. It can be fun. I'll show you something. I don't know if you can see. This is one of probably the smallest distillery, Edredor. So I was just passing through a small whiskey shop in Taiwan, and I noticed that they had these, uh, wooden boxes with something very strangely written. 3 of them actually. And price wise, not so expensive, maybe 50 or 60 US dollars. So I was just curious. I was even aware that Taiwan is such a huge market for whiskey, etc. But then these looked quite fancy. I'm just trying to share this for fun. So it's just not that always you end up uh, gunning for a Macallan or something like that. So these whiskeys are quite um, they represent this Asian culture. You see here, I'll try to take the bottle out. Um, you see this is just the Edredor straight from the cask, but these bottles have these the Chinese gods on them. Of course, they have not appreciated so much in value or something, but when you place these boxes on uh, and you consider this as a collection, it's quite funny. Somebody coming into your room and saying, hey, what is this? You seem to have some kind of a very weird looking hieroglyphic kind of a bottle, and then this is some of the funny things. So the point I want to convey by sharing these bottles is like, sometimes you can also pick up, somebody one of my friends tries to collect uh, um, uh, IBs from Lagavulin or Talisker. So he says that I can't find Lagavulin or Talisker in independent bottling so easy. So he keeps going around the world, try to pick up some IBs. So collection can also be fun. As I showed you that these Edredos are quite funny. They're quite, the bottles are also quite, people keep asking, do you know who these people are? They look like warriors, and also it's quite funny as well. So you can kickstart some collection like this also. In terms of, I want to show you one more thing, which one of the distilleries that really impressed me is Chichibu. I started collecting some Chichibus. This is a pair of Chichibu whiskies. The specialty of these bottles are, these are ex-Hanyu, because when Hanyu closed, there were some casks that he carried over to his new distillery, and now these are bottled. And Chichibu is one distillery that really produces quality whiskey. If you can get hold of some Chichibu whiskies, especially the ones which are available in the primary market. That's something really tough, but very limited bottles. Most of the time, they bottle single casks. So Chichibu is one thing that if somebody who's going to start some collection from now, it's quite difficult to collect some old Springbanks or like White House, like what Hemant was saying. Forget collecting White House, even finding them in the bars is such a difficult thing.
Very
So
true, very true.
I'm a very hardcore fan of Lagavulin as well. So sometimes these days when people say, "Hey, can we have something the old Lagavulin?" We have to call bars and we have to hop in and hop out, saying, "Hey guys, do you have White Horse?" and things like that. So that's something that I would suggest. I'm not suggesting, but something like when people want to start newly, look at these new distilleries. Um, that are coming up, and they might also have some potential in the future. Whiskey demand is growing a lot. The last bottle I want to show is like, just because Krishna mentioned, and I also was having it on my table. I also like a lot of blends. This is one blend which is a 25-year-old blend. Looks from Nectar of the Daily Drams. Stunningly good whiskeys. Stunningly good whiskey. Just under 80 pounds or so, 25-year-old blends. I really do appreciate a lot of blends. It's like sometimes in the afternoon or late evenings when I don't have company, people have dished me. I take a blend and sit in the corner and try to fight with it. Trust me, it's really, really wonderful. Really, really wonderful. Some blends are simply astonishing. So that's all I have to share with you guys. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Damu. I think so. Very, very humbly, you have chosen bottles very carefully to display for us. The Edrados were absolutely adorable. I think so. The bottles look really, really great, and a lot of woodwork around them as well. Fantastic bottles. Yeah, I know that Damu, you are a big fan of Lagavulin, and next time we are doing an auction, we should probably get together so that we don't bid against each other. That should be something that we should be doing. But yeah, back to you, Harsha. If you have any questions, if people have got bottles to showcase, more than happy. We're running overtime, so people who want to
Yeah.
drop off can drop off, I guess. But yeah, back to you.
Yeah, so we won't we don't have too much of time left. So we can take a couple of questions. What we could do is bring the fancy bottles to the next session. I
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
we'll
okay.
start with that and then move into the main content, right? So for now, David, I saw you raising a hand some time ago. I'm going to unmute you so you can ask away. You'll have to unmute yourself now.
David, can you hear us?
Yeah, of course, Hemant. I just unmuted myself. Hemant,
All
first
right.
of all, I want to thank you for your fantastic articulation and the way the whiskey world is. And for me, I'm still a student of whiskey, and I'm starting right from the basic. And I want to admit this, that this journey and experience is absolutely magic for me. I used to collect a lot of whiskeys, but
Okay.
never got into the detailing of it. And now
All
I've
right.
started actually respecting whiskeys. It is like a science in itself. So the question that I want to ask you, Hemant, is, I believe it is very difficult to get whiskey into India outside unless you buy it off the duty free, or you have friends coming into the country, right?
Right.
Is there some way, if you, like the range of whiskeys that you get in India, obviously is what they put on the shelf is which you can choose from, right? The other way of looking at it is when you travel across the world and you visit all these shops, which are great shops, like the Whiskey Exchange in England, or the Whiskey Exchange in Dublin that I visited. And if you have somebody who picks it up for you, is there a possibility that they can ship it for you in limited quantities, 1 or 2 bottles, or it's absolutely not allowed?
So it's absolutely not allowed would be the very candid question, David. So if you get anything shipped, right, there are a couple of scans that currently any kind of shipping material undergoes, which displays that it's got liquid in them, and that's when it gets confiscated in customs. I can tell you the extent of the scrutiny it undergoes. That getting the example of Krishna is shaking his head very, very strongly, because even samples reports that come to Krishna from the different competitions that actually send him samples for evaluating whiskey, even they are confiscated, and Krishna has actually tried going to these customs and trying to argue, or rather debate with them, saying that he is a judge and it is only for passionate purposes. Even that is not allowed, David, unfortunately. That's the situation that we have with our country. And David, let's be very open about it. We can argue about the law. We can say that the law is ill-informed, it's not up to date, it's draconic, etc. We can have all those views about the law. But when you look at the law in terms of black and white, the law is very clear that says that you can't ship bottles into India, period. The reason behind that, of course, is because of the crazy amount of taxes that are there. 156% tax is what any imported whiskey has. So to ensure that that duty is not lost by the government, that's the reason why they have so many scrutiny steps. Now, if there is a bottle that actually passes through any kind of shipping scrutiny and reaches you, well, you might be a very, very lucky person. But I would, as a personal recommendation, I would say that don't do it. You're just exposing yourself to so much amount of risk. And if you have a collection by yourself, that would just put undue pressure on yourself by, for that one single bottle. So my advice would be don't go for it.
Okay. Thank you, Hemant.
All right. No problem. Harsha, do we have anything else? Harsha, unmute. You're on mute, Harsh.
Yeah, sorry. We had one question, an interesting one from Kasturi. I
Okay.
see her on video, but Kasturi, if you are around, if you can hear us, you can ask your question now. Yeah, thank you.
You can unmute yourself, Kasturi. We can't hear you yet.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
My question was about storage. You said that you should store a whiskey bottle vertically,
Yep.
but most expensive whiskey bottles come with a cork closure, right?
Right.
Store it for too long. I usually store my bottles for very, very long. I mean, I open it, I drink, and I cannot finish it. I just keep it.
Right.
So my question is, if you keep a bottle for very long, the cork becomes brittle, and
Absolutely.
it gets into the liquid.
True.
So what is your suggestion for storage then?
Very, very pertinent and important question, Kasturi. And I guess it comes from experience of storing bottles and those corks actually disintegrating when you're opening those bottles. So, yeah. So what I can only tell you, saying that from experience, as to, yes, any high ABV bottle, the higher the ABV, the propensity of that cork disintegrating is that much more, because we are talking about the dryness because of the alcohol content in that bottle. What I do, and I think that works for me, is I follow a schedule in terms of cork wetting, it's called. What you do is, once in, let's say, 6 months, once in 3 months, you ensure that there is a tilt for the bottle. You wet the cork a bit to ensure that the cork regains the moisture from the whiskey, and to ensure that the dryness doesn't come through that much. So that's one way of going about in terms of ensuring that your cork doesn't become that brittle. But when you're talking, but Kasturi, let me caution you over here, saying that this works only to a certain extent, and it doesn't really, it's not a foolproof mechanism, especially in a tropical country like India. We're going to have that much more problem, especially when the whiskeys become higher ABV. As anything above 55% is going to lead to this problem. So yes, the best way to store it would be vertical, even if your cork is damaged, because at the end of it, it's still a mechanism to actually store your whiskey in terms of storing it and not letting it escape. That can be compromised to ensuring that quality of your whiskey is not being lost. So that's the way that I would look at it, if I have answered your question. And if anyone else has got different ways to how they do it, Krishna, Damu, if you've got anything, please raise your hands, and Harsha will unmute you if you've got a different way as to how this is done. Well, okay, Krishna has got his hand up. Harsha, you can unmute him.
Yeah.
See, the relation of wine corking and whiskey corking is different. The wine corking is more frequent, whereas whiskey corking is not that frequent. Traditionally, so far, what we have seen in the last 25, 30 years, while I've been into whiskeys are always stood erect, whereas the wines are always stood horizontally, because the cork of the wine cork has to be wet, whereas the whiskey cork has to be always stand. Because if you do frequent wetting of the cork, then the cork aging and the oxidation will affect the quality of the alcohol. So it is best left the whiskey to stand erect, and once we open the bottle and the cork breaks or they get brittle, let it break, but the whiskey remains as such.
Okay.
That's my point.
All right. So, Krishna, the reason why probably I would just add to that a little bit, saying that the reason why I would consider wetting the cork a little bit, Kasturi, if you're talking about short, I mean, when you're taking long-term storage of the bottle, let's say a year, a couple of years, cork wetting works, because you are not you intend to open the bottle in a couple of years, and you're not going to damage the cork a great deal by wetting it. So, but yes, as I said, it's going to be very, very touch and go kind of situation in a tropical country like us. If you're having that really, really valuable bottles, I would still say compromise on the cork. You're just losing the cork. It's just going to disintegrate itself. It doesn't really matter.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Harsha, do we have?
We can take one question. Yes, there's
okay, Sharad.
Sharad, yeah.
Yeah. So since we can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely, Sharad.
Yeah. So since we're talking about wine and whiskey as well, and a lot of people decant their wines, right? So they do it just to air it for a bit and then they consume it. So I've seen a lot of people decanting some of their whiskeys as well. But you don't consume the whiskey, all that whiskey in one go, right? You might finish the wine which has been decanted, but you would not finish the whiskey. So is it an effective thing? How good is it if you decant the whiskey?
The reason why I'm smiling, Sharad, is probably you need to wait for our next session. We're going to talk about this a bit. We're going to talk about aeration of spirits. We're going to talk about, some of the gizmos that are there in the current whiskey world, where we're going to actually showcase saying that it's a very, very personal thing, Sharad, I would say, saying that if it really makes a difference to the whiskey or not. But yeah, there are a few gizmos around that can keep us entertained and more than anything else in terms of what's available and what's not. So we'll talk about that in the next session, Sharad, in detail with a demonstration.
Hemant, you handled that question pretty quickly. So I'm going to take one more question. Okay, Jomo is on the line. He's got an interesting one considering the heat that we face in our country.
Okay, hey Jomon.
Hi Hemant, I just want to ask about the refrigeration. Does it enhance the shelf life of whiskey? Do you recommend for a refrigeration of whiskies? But I never seen anybody doing that, so just wanted to ask why it's not done, or do you recommend it?
So, I'm just going to probably take that question in the manner saying that if we talk about storage, probably that's not the best place to store whiskey, because the moment you chill whiskey, what basically happens to whiskey is if you remember, we spoke about chill filtration in the last time. We're talking about all the flavors actually coming together and not actually, exposing themselves. So you don't get the best output of the whiskey when you are chilling it. It's fantastic to have some chilled whiskey, especially with some cubes of ice in a hot country like us, especially in summer. I would advise, I would not say anything against it. But storage of whiskey, if you say, Jomon, no, I wouldn't consider refrigeration to be a way to go about it. I think so. The way to go about it would be store it in a cool, dry place, not much of light. One thing that I, probably forgot to caution, and good that you've got up this point, is please, all of you have got fancy bars. Please be very cautious about lights on those bars. If you have got some, credible bottles that you'd want to store for a long time, don't expose them to those heavy lights on your bars. That's really going to disintegrate the whiskey, or rather degrade the quality of the whiskey. But Jomon, in terms of question, refrigeration, no, I wouldn't really recommend storing whiskey in a fridge. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else, Harsha, do we have? Or...
No, I think we'll end.
Anupam. Okay, one last thing from Anupam. He's the doctor. We need to concede to the doctor, especially at this time period. Anupam, you need to go off mute.
Yeah. First of all, actually, I would just like a small comment. I would like to thank Damu, because I've been following his blogs and the posts he has been giving in this SMSC, really interactive. And Yeah, very nice. And one small thing, he has been telling that collection is not always about like fancy bottles. Sometimes it can be fun.
Yeah.
So I was in Sikkim and I found this.
Oh, that's a very popular one, actually. Damu.
Can you bring it closer?
Can you bring that closer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is old gold Sikkim single malt. Sikkim, can you say it?
Yeah, just a little back. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, thank you.
So collection can be fun also. That's
Can you hold that up again?
But what I can tell you, Anupam, is after visiting the distillery, I can tell you there's no single malt in there. That much I can guarantee you. But yes, it's a fancy bottle. Yes, I know. I'm aware of that.
They've written single malt, but blended.
There you go. Some secrets come out, as they say.
Yeah, that's just a point I was making.
Sure, Anupam. But folks, thank you so much. I guess it's been a long evening. We try to stick to time, but never ensure that we do. But as usual, it's, I guess, because of the passion that all of us have. I hope you had fun today. I hope you have seen some bottles that you'd like to own, or at least you'd like to drink someday. And thank you so much for being online. We'll catch up on the next session. Next session is again going to be something very interesting. It's not going to be as heavy as this because we're going to talk about glassware. We're going to talk about the gadgetry around the whiskey world and see as to how we can enhance this experience with this fantastic spirit. So thank you so much, guys. It's been fun, and we'll catch up next Friday, 7 p.m. Cheers then. Slanjay.
Thank you. Thank you.